The Grand Sage named Rain is a mage who manipulates the art of object duplication. Thanks to his achievements, he was granted a position within the Trueborn Society despite being born a prisoner. But to those who could buy as much as they wanted, if one loaf of bread becomes two people can be fed. Such was his ideal. The doubling of a single gemstone was not a blessing, but a threat capable of shattering the very foundation of value itself. To the Trueborn who gorged themselves on prosperity, it was nothing but danger. Rain was ensnared by the great noble, Duke Damien, mocked and cursed for not being born a noble. He was murdered in deceit. Swearing revenge, Rain, in his dying moments, replicated his own soul and implanted it within the womb of the Duke's wife. His revenge begins from there, and thus, he was reborn again as the son of his mortal enemy. In time, the great sage Rain, at last placing his hands upon the neck of his despised father, who reveled in worldly spring. It was late at night, the bright moon illuminating the dim streets of the capital, where a heavily injured man was limping by. Blood dripped down his lips as he leaned on the wall for support, his hand clutching the wound on his stomach. Thinking back on it now, it must have been orchestrated from the very beginning. Knights searched the alleys he could have hidden in, weapons in hand. They called him names, a filthy ex-prisoner, a coward, and a wretched lowborn. But all our MC could do was grit his teeth and run away, but he was too heavily injured and ended up stumbling to the ground. That's when a barefeet girl found him, along with her master, who ordered our MC's death. The girl obeyed without a second thought and scorched his entire body with magic until he's screaming in pain. That's right, everything was man-made. Even being invited to the Damien family's party, the way he was erased, and everything that followed after. A few hours earlier at the Damien estate, the Duke hosted a party and introduced a special guest. A brilliant talent, and the one who was recently granted the title of Grand Sage by the Imperial Court, our MC, Rain. Murmurs filled the hall the second he appeared, the nobles immediately recognizing him as the person behind replication. The magic of replication he discovered will definitely change everything they know. Rare magic stones, masterpieces crafted by artisans long gone, relics of lost civilization. The value of being able to reproduce them endlessly goes without saying. Rain may still be of prisoner status, but there are rumors that he'll soon receive a title and land. They're just welcoming him a little early. Women flocked towards him, praising him with their venomous tongues, but Rain wasn't used to this attention. This just felt awkward to him. That's why when he saw an opportunity to run away, he immediately took it and escaped to the balcony. He's so tired, but he could finally see the world of nobles now. Just this hall alone could fit the entire tenement he grew up in. It's literally a different world. Just then, a maid approached him, offering a glass of wine. Rain was thanking her as he took the drink, when he suddenly recognized her. Isn't she Azed from the landlord's place? She's grown. He heard she was working as a maid in a noble's house, but he didn't realize it was the Damien's. He remembers, she used to come play in his room all the time, scolding him for spending all his money on books. It's been a while. He wonders how many years it has been since they last met. The little girl whose nappies he used to change has grown up so much. Azed's cheeks flushed red in embarrassment. Why would he bring that up all of a sudden? Rain quickly apologized, it just slipped out. More importantly, she should stop addressing him as Lord, it's too formal. However, Azed refused. She can't exactly do that since she's a maid. Still, he really is a genius. To be able to multiply anything infinitely. She wonders how much he's made so far. Money, she means. Really, she hasn't changed a bit. Rain made it clear that the whole anything infinitely line was exaggerated by the Duke. His replication isn't that omnipotent. In theory, he could copy anything, but, it's easier if he shows it instead. Rain plucked a piece of flower from the vase on top of the balcony railings and used magic to replicate it. Once done, he handed it to Azed, only for it to wilt. That's the catch. The precision of replication depends on how well one understands the object's physical and magical structure. Simply put, on one's degree of understanding. Just glancing and touching it won't make a perfect copy. And well, he never was interested in flowers anyway. Also, the more complex something is, the more time it takes. The nobler the item, the harder it gets. For instance, replicating counterfeit coins, for it to be accurate enough to pass would never be worth the cost. The same applies to art and craft work even more so. And if one tries it on a living being, well, she can see the result for herself with that wilted flower. But there's something not even written in his thesis. There's actually one exception. Wait, why is she laughing? He's having his moment here. It's just that. Azed's kind of relieved. The boy from the tenement she used to think of as her big brother is now called Grand Sage, and wearing fine clothes, attending noble parties, but he's still Rain, and that won't change. Even if he looks different, he's the same shy bookworm who only cared about magic. A faint blush appeared on Rain's cheeks as he asked if that was supposed to be a compliment. Azed just laughed, pushing him back inside. The party still still going, so he should start getting acquainted with the nobles for his future. Rain hesitated. He'd rather talk with her, but with her strong insistence, he finally gave in and went back inside. However, chaos erupted the moment he entered the hall, with a nobleman shouting that a thief had snuck in. The Duke rushed towards him to ask about what happened, so the nobleman opened the chest he was holding. Inside it was their family heirloom, the blue diamond necklace. They just took it out of the vault to display it to their guests, but there's something wrong. The Duke grabbed the necklace, claiming it was right there, but upon further inspection, he realized that it was a fake, a replica. It's well made, but the details differ. There's no mistake. The nobleman found that unbelievable. That necklace was the work of a legendary craftsman. So who could possibly make such a replication? He paused, the Duke understanding the implication. There is indeed someone who could do that. Their heads slowly turned towards the newly arrived Rain, who insisted he didn't do it. There was no way he could replicate something so intricate. He looked around the hall, desperate to convince everyone, anyone, but he was met with their scornful stares and mocking smirks. Though it was too late, that was the moment he understood. He'd been set up. The reason was clear. When he created this magic, he believed that two people could eat if one loaf of bread became two. But for them, if they wanted more, they could just buy more. To them, one gemstone becoming two wasn't a blessing. It was a threat, a force that could destroy the very idea of value. Suddenly, Az spoke and raised the wilted flower that Rain gave her, trying to explain that he could never do such a thing. But before she could finish her sentence, Rain grabbed her shoulder and with his magic decree, he commanded her to stay silent. Because no matter what she says, it won't change a thing. If speaking only drags her down too, then it's better this way. Everyone began to panic upon realizing that he used a spell, and as if on cue, knights came rushing in to capture Rain with the Duke's command. Rain grabbed the curtain nearby and used replication, causing a ton of curtains to fall on everyone's heads, giving him time to run away. Of course, the knights quickly recovered and ran after him. Meanwhile, at the hall, the Duke announced that he takes full responsibility for this incident as the host, and asked them to leave everything to him. But that did not quell the nobles' doubts. After all, Rain is still the Grand Sage. They find it hard to believe that he'd be taken down so easily. A sinister smile creeped into the Duke's face. The honor of House Damien is at stake, and they have measures in place just for such an event. Watching them from behind was Az, who held the wilted rose tightly, her worry for Rain evident. Back to the present, the girl used magic to burn Rain, who was trembling and unable to move. He panted, questioning what the hell was happening. This girl, she has so much power, but there weren't any signs. Did that child really do this? The girl gathered more magic into her palms, forming fireballs behind her and releasing them to attack Rain, destroying the shield he put up to defend against her attack. The Duke looked down on his sorry state with a smirk. It did cost a fortune, but it seems it was worth it, as expected of their new model. As for Rain, that was quite the stunt he pulled back there. But worry not, the land meant for him will be granted to him instead as compensation. Now, he should just die without regret. Rain tried to pull himself up, warning the Duke that he misunderstood replication, which only seemed to fuel his anger. What an insolent fool. What makes him think that he can lecture a duke like himself? He doesn't care if he's a sage, he's still a low-born prisoner wretch. To presume to lecture him is laughable. Rain could not believe what he just heard. Is it a sin to be born a prisoner? The Duke scowled. Of course, it is. If one must be born human, is it not better to be born noble? They don't even understand that, and choose to be born as prisoners. So foolish, so pitiful. If that's not stupidity, what is? Realizing the situation, Rain decided to just give up because no argument will reach this swine. It's just meaningless. He's right. Because this pig's mouth would not stop complaining about Rain's audacity to stand at the same height as him, eat at the same table, and even call himself Grand Sage when in fact, Rain never even called himself that. It was the Emperor who bestowed the title upon him, but this pig's not listening and even had the nerve to insult the Emperor's decision when that could pass as treason, even though they're blood related. But who could hear them, right? It's just the two of them here, so there's no problem. The Duke's words confirmed Rain's suspicion. That girl behind him, so she really isn't human. Then, what is she? Just as he was thinking, the Duke raised his hand to command the girl to finish it off since he needs to return before his guests grow bored. A magic circle appeared below her feet at the same time a huge ball of fire descended down on Rain, who questioned where he went wrong and what he did to deserve this. It was the Duke who answered. It's obvious, isn't it? He wasn't born a noble, that is his in. The fire engulfed the whole area, almost reaching the night sky. It was painful, but Rain was smiling. What an idiot. Did that pig think he was running aimlessly? Did he think he'd chat with him for no reason? All Rain needed was time for his final replication. Replication magic cannot duplicate life because it demands perfect understanding of the subject, and the mystery of life itself lies far beyond reach. But there is one exception. 10 months later, a baby boy was born to the Damien family. The Duke took the newborn in his arms and bestowed upon it its name, Shivan, a name befitting a true son of their house. Relying on a single heir is risky, but now, the Damien family is finally secure. It's baffling how that's the first thing he says upon his child's birth. Gouch Damien, he never changes. Replication magic cannot duplicate life, but within that law lies one exception. Of all life beyond full comprehension, there exists one being Rain can understand completely. The only life form he truly knows, the replication of one's own soul. This pig claimed that his sin was not being born a noble, so after his death, Rain's soul wandered through the skies before finally entering the Duchess's womb and stayed there until she got pregnant. It was a gamble whether it would work, but look now, he's been born a noble. Rain, the magician of the captured people, was treacherously murdered by Gouch Damien, a noble of the true people. So then, he used replication magic on his soul and was born as a noble in his family, no less. Rain, no, his now Shivan. He was in the Duchess's arms, watching Gouch's defenseless back. He could kill him, even with his current body, but killing him now would be meaningless. He would die without even knowing why he had to, and Shivan wouldn't come out of it unharmed either. Also, he's worried about that strange girl, too. Gouch told everyone in the room to raise Shivan strictly since he might end up as the heir of House Damien. Even if the household headship goes to the eldest son, Fork, there's still a use for him if he's talented. Shivan smirked upon hearing that. He'll definitely become the perfect son. He'll win the right of succession and become the supreme heir. He'll earn their total, unquestioning trust. He'll pry out everything, the Damien household's public face and its hidden corners, and everything about that girl and strip it all bare. When Gouch is reveling in this world's pleasures, when he no longer harbors a single worry about his future and lays everything bare, that's when Shivan will kill him and take it all. Gouch Damien, he can laugh for now. That's where Rain's revenge begins. 7 years have passed since Rain was reborn as Shivan, the second son of House Damien. He was sitting on his desk, busy practicing and honing his replication magic. It took time since controlling such precise magical waveforms is no small feat, but he thinks his senses are starting to come back. Seriously though, nobles and commoners really do live in completely different worlds. Their food, their environment, everything. The mansion is protected by barriers that continuously enhance latent magical power, and from childhood, they are raised on rare ingredients and secret elixirs. In his body now, at 7 years old, there's already more magical power than he had back when he was Rain. And the precision of replication is improving day by day. After finishing the food he had replicated, he glanced at the painting hung by his side, depicting war. There are several reasons why their nation, the former Leva Principality of the captured people, was defeated in war by the Holy Soji Empire of the true people. The biggest factor was the difference in magical power. Leva couldn't stand against the powerful magic wielded by Soji soldiers, and history says the war was decided in just 3 months. The true people, who boosted their magical power using techniques akin to human modification, defeated the captured people, who recoiled at the desecration of life. Shivan finally understood Gouch's words. It seems saying it's his fault for not being born a noble isn't entirely wrong. Their technology is the enemy's, but he'll make good use of it. He's going to need power down the line anyway. His primary goal is to become the ideal heir for Gouch, and he finds himself in a mix of unexpected luck and misfortune. Just then, a knock came on his door. Speaking of luck, there's no other way to put it, he really was fortunate. This is completely unexpected. He opened the door and let the person in. It was the maid, AZ. He never imagined that she would be chosen as the nursemaid to take care of him. AZ, as usual, did her job, her eyes dim without a speck of life. Shivan stared at her back, maybe too much, as she looked back to ask if there was something he needed. He quickly turned back to his book and told her it was nothing. Once AZ got back to work, Shivan once again watched her every move. He'd be lying if he said he didn't feel any disappointment when he learned that AZ, who should have known about his death, was still serving this household. That is, until he realized during the 10 months he spent in the womb that she was no longer the AZ he once knew. He remembered the first time AZ was tasked to take care of him. He thought she was just doing it for a living, though he can't help but wonder how she feels caring for the son of the man who killed him. Well, he's just an unremarkable guy from a tenement, after all. Maybe he's already someone from the past. However, he soon realized he was wrong. When AZ carried him in her arms, he felt the harsh tremble of her hands and the scorn in her eyes before quickly turning back to normal after a deep breath. She placed him down on the couch, and he watched as she fixed his crib, unable to hold his laughter. Is it really okay for him to feel this happy? Can something like this be allowed? It seems while playing the part of an innocent, exemplary young maid, AZ keeps nourishing her intent to kill, almost as if it were about to burst from that tiny body. Even if that hatred ever turned towards him, she wouldn't follow through because her hatred is directed solely at Gouch. If she were to lay hands on Shivan, that would make her impossible to fulfill it. No, rather, she's probably aiming to earn his trust as his son and get closer to the Duke. To do that, AZ will devote herself to him with complete sincerity. If that's not luck, then what is? Someone who shares his purpose was placed before him from the very start. He hopes to fall into hell together and deliver a cruel, merciless judgment upon that man. But it seems that will still be far in the future as he wets himself with just a little bit of excitement. He got carried away for a moment. Worry not, because AZ will get him all cleaned up. She brought him to the bathroom for a bath, assuring him that she's right here so he wouldn't be scared. Yeah, well, the thing is, he's not really a child. Having his diaper changed. Is this humiliation meant to disgrace AZ as well? This is all Gouch Damien's fault. He'll never forgive that pig. Even at the present, she's still washing him. Yeah, this is definitely crossing the line. Shivan insisted that he'll handle his baths and toilet from now on, but AZ refused, claiming it was her job. Well, he can't waste time getting hung up on small misfortunes like this. There are far bigger issues to deal with if he's going to become the heir. And right now, the biggest of them all is his brother. He stood by the window and watched as his brother practiced magic, boasting that he was a genius. This is the 12-year-old Fork Damien, Gouch's eldest son and Shivan's brother, who is 5 years older than him. Naturally, his claim to the family headship ranks above Shivan's. So first, he has to push this brother of his off his pedestal. Night came and the Damien family spent evening having dinner together. While eating, Gouch informed Fork that his transfer to the academy is coming up soon, so he expects his magic training to be progressing well. Fork excitedly agreed. Apparently, his instructor said there's nothing left to teach him. Gouch picked up a glass of wine, relieved. Fork will be exempt from the entrance exam, but if he embarrasses himself once he's there, it'll bring shame upon their house, so Gouch warned him not to make a fool of himself. Shivan listened quietly. Fork's heading to the academy. If things go as they should, he'll probably be sent to a monastery to avoid a succession dispute. By the way, Fork has a small request regarding his enrollment. He'd like to have one servant assigned exclusively to him, someone to handle errands at the academy. Shivan gave him the bombastic side eye. For a noble family, it's not unusual to assign a personal attendant, but that's usually for students living in the dorms. Since Fork will be commuting from the estate, it seems unnecessary. Which means his real motive must be something else. As expected, Fork made excuses, claiming he was destined to carry the name of House Damien one day, so he'd like to start learning how to command others now. Gouch agreed and said he'll arrange someone, perhaps a young man from one of their branch families, but Fork claimed that won't be necessary and pointed to AZ. She'd do just fine. Oh right, that maid is Shivan's babysitter maid, but that's unnecessary now since he's not an infant anymore. Gouch agreed, but reminded him to keep it moderate. Fork got excited upon his father's approval, and told AZ to come to his room tonight so he could tell her the particulars. His eyes are rolling back in excitement at the thought of dominating her in his bed tonight. Shivan noticed Fork's ulterior motives. Even if he's a noble, doing something like that to a true person won't go unnoticed. But if it's a maid from the captured people, there's no problem, or so it seems. Shivan spoke up. He did say he didn't need a babysitter maid, but he never said he would let her go. Fork stood up in anger, questioning if Shivan understood what it means to defy him, his eldest brother. Not to mention, their father approved of this too. Shivan does. He knows it's certainly unforgivable. However, a low-ranking servant, even if she's one of the captured people, he cannot, as a noble's son, send a woman out knowing full well what might be done to her. As a noble, whatever the reality may be, nobles are supposed to be dignified and pure. That's how it is meant to be. So if Shivan insists, it can't be helped. All Gouch could do is to find another attendant for Fork. However, Shivan claimed that it was unthinkable for a younger brother to refuse his elder's request. He finds it difficult to let it pass, and that gave Fork an idea. He's going to punish him. No, not a punishment, but a duel. That's the proper way of a noble. No one can object if they settle it by duel. If he says this, he was sure that Shivan will have to yield. He should know the difference in their standing. But contrary to his expectations, Shivan calmly asked if the duel was to the death, causing Fork to be taken aback. As a wise elder brother, surely he wouldn't say such a thing, would he? Shivan didn't wait for Fork's response before turning to their father, Gouch, to ask permission to make it a mock duel, and they'll abide by the outcome as in a real one. Gouch thought it was utterly foolish, but still let them do as they like. Fork was thankful and vowed to come out victorious. Shivan could only smirk at the scene. The day of the mock duel, the stage was surrounded with nobles eager to watch the match. They're all looking forward to this. Fork turned confused when he saw the crowd, so Shivan explained that they were guests from the monthly tea party. Apparently, that's supposed to be next month. But they say the family got a batch of rare Eastern sweets, so they moved the schedule and held it at the Damien estate. Finally, the duel began, witnessed by Fork's teacher. Since it's a mock duel, they may only use up to second strain magic, and the match ends when one side yields, or when he judges it too dangerous to continue. Shivan was fine with it, but Fork wanted him to wager something. He defies his elder brother, and all he risks is losing his mate? How does he plan to make amends when he loses? It seems he's getting greedy now that there's an audience. In that case, Shivan will shave his hair. It's a path he'll have to take eventually, after all. By the Damien family's custom, sons who do not inherit the title eventually leave home and enter the clergy. It's a way to show piety and avoid succession disputes. Though, if something happened to the firstborn, they'd apparently be recalled. Faith is a convenient thing. Fork burst out laughing and agreed with it. He bet it'll suit him anyway. Then, that settles the terms. The mock duel will now begin. Shivan began to gather magic, a circle appearing on his palm. Magic is categorized into 9 strains, from the 1st to the 9th, based on danger and difficulty. The higher the number, the stronger the spell. He swung his wand, shooting out a 1st strain fireball. The 1st or 2nd strain is bottom of the rung. It's magic that's nearly harmless in nature. Fork smirked, countering with a 2nd strain spiral flare. His immense magic surprised even the onlookers as he directly hit Shivan with his magic. The teacher panicked, and a suspicious-looking old man watching from the balcony found that spell to be rather crude. They think Shivan's done for, huh? Psych. He was able to block it with a 2nd strain anti-phase barrier. Really now? Had that hit, he wouldn't be standing. But now, Fork's magic attacks are useless with this barrier. Fork saw red and rushed forward to punch Shivan in the face. He beat him up, questioning what he thought he was doing. Does he realize what he's done? He blocked the next heir's magic. For a noble, having one's magic defended against is a matter of pride. They live for appearances and reputation, in ways commoners could never imagine. To be publicly countered, and with a spell of the same strain, no less, is, by noble standards, an unpardonable insult. In some cases, it's enough to be killed without complaint. Thus, Fork's fury and his right to strike his younger brother was entirely justified. It was natural for him to raise his fist, though, of course, having the right to act and choosing to use it are very different things. When Fork finally stopped, the teacher's call snapped him back to reality. He looked around and realized that the crowd was whispering about how cruel he was. Even if it's a mock duel, his opponent was a mere 7-year-old and his own brother. The place was quickly filled with rumors about him. Shivan's goal has been fulfilled. Fork noticed the mocking smirk on his face and quickly tried to throw another punch, but was stopped by the teacher. At the same time, Gouch finally came forward to intervene. Fork was actually happy to see him and told him about his victory. However, he was met with a harsh slap on the cheek. Gouch was trembling in anger. He dares humiliate him like this. He's indulged him for his magical talent, but he's reached his limit. He will not inherit this house. His right of succession is suspended. Fork tried to run after his father, but he was utterly ignored. Meanwhile, Az ran towards Shivan to check on him, and he just gave her a smile as well as a wave to reassure her he was fine. The nobles whispered about how dignified and noble he was. He truly is the one worthy of inheritance. Shivan stood up, thankful for their praise. Although, their turn to face ruin won't be far behind. He bowed down and the crowd erupted in applause, with the suspicious-looking old man wondering where he learned to have such a refined composition for his age. Watching all of this go down is Fork, his fist trembling in anger. Later that night, a robed person entered Shivan's room. The person stopped by his bed and raised a knife, when Shivan suddenly appeared from behind, stopping his brother, Fork, who grabbed the blanket open only to find pillows underneath it. Shivan calmly stood there, expecting this. After all, their father's opinion of Fork has sunk entirely by now. To recover from that and have the suspension lifted will be no easy task. And his brother Fork is hardly the type for such a steady, humble effort. That leaves only one way. If he kills Shivan, he'll be the only son left. A very rational and rather short-sighted solution, it seems. He's not a devil, though, so if he walks away now, he'll pretend he saw nothing. He should just give up the inheritance and live as a monk. Fork gritted his teeth and shouted in anger. He'd rather die than to become a monk who can't even sleep with a woman. Then, he attacked Shivan with a 4th strain fray piercing. To activate it without any proper study, he really did have talent. Just talent alone. Born into privilege, with a strong body and all the advantages, and yet this is all he amounts to. Shivan easily dispelled the attack with his bare hands, leaving Fork flabbergasted. The theory Fork ignored. If he'd studied it properly, he'd know this much is easy. All right, Shivan will keep it at 1st strain, so he doesn't scorch the room. He used replication magic and summoned a strong fire, threatening Fork that if he tells anyone about this, he'll know what'll happen, right? Fork desperately agreed not to say a word, and with that, Shivan shot the fire to his head, burning all his hair. This saves him the trouble of shaving his head, doesn't it? The next day, Fork departed for the monastery by his own insistence, while Shivan spent his afternoon leisurely having tea and dessert. He offered Azet a plate, but she fervently waved her hands to refuse since a servant shouldn't be eating such fine sweets. However, Shivan stubbornly insisted that it was all right and that they could split them. Even nobles rarely get to taste such exquisite tea sweets. He simply used replication to make a large batch and had them delivered to the estate. Then, using the sweets as an excuse, he nudged them into holding a tea party and let the rumor of the duel spread among the guests. It wasn't much. All he did was give Fork's self-destruction a little push. The replicated ones were tasty enough, but, of course, the originals are on another level. Shivan held the sweet up, talking about how delicious they were. Azet did the same, agreeing to his sentiment. And for the first time since Rain died, the light in her eyes shone again. Years later, a carriage stopped in front of a building. A person stepped out of the carriage. It's the now 12-year-old Shivan Damien. Standing tall before him is the prestigious magical academy, Largo Mare. Largo, the first sage who lived about 200 years ago, founded his private academy here, and now it's a prestigious school attended by many noble children. If he's aiming to become the ideal heir, this is an unavoidable gate. Behind him, Azet worriedly asked if he really was going alone since this is an important entrance exam. Even now, she can send someone in her place. Shivan held her hand and assured her that she is his only attendant. And so, he entered the gate, leaving Azet behind. What greeted him inside was a nobleman whipping two workers. Even here, the captured people are treated like that. He definitely can't bring Azet along here. If he messes up here, Gouch's interest will wane, and her plan to get closer to him through Shivan will be in jeopardy. But she doesn't need to worry, because he'll make sure her wish comes true. Once he entered the academy, a professor instructed him to place his hand on a crystal sphere for the written exam. Shivan turned confused. Was this it for the written exam? The professor explained that the crystal sphere reads the amount of knowledge and the depth and speed of one's thinking much faster and more accurately than paper and pen. Shivan had no choice but to do as he was instructed and placed his hand on the crystal sphere. Hesitating would only make him look suspicious. The crystal sphere let out a strong glow, indicating that he possessed an impressive wealth of knowledge and a broad perspective. The detailed results will be given later, so for now, the professor asked him to proceed through the passage on the left. Shivan noticed the previous examinee going to the right though, so he asked about it. The professor explained that that room is where they speak with certain candidates. Basically, a proxy exam. It seems even nobles leave their tests to someone else. After entering the examination hall, Shivan was greeted by the other examinees. He bowed and introduced himself. Same goes for the two boys who recognized him. The one with coconut hair is Elio, the third son of the Gehring family, and the one with one strand of bangs is Denari, the eldest son of the All family. And that girl over there, whose name seems to be Estel, must be from the Silver family. The prestigious Largo Mare. Shivan took this exam to earn Gouch's trust, but those nobles who trapped him at that party, their sons and daughters are mixed in among the examinees. How utterly fortunate. Every single one of them. He wonders what schemes they are hiding behind those polite smiles. Their conversation was cut short when the examiner announced the beginning of the practical exam. He used magic to make the dummies piled up beside him to fly around in the air. Their task is to use magic to bring them down, and their score will be based on how many they strike down before the bell rings. Now then, they shall begin. Elio tried to cast the third wave, but he panicked when he realized the stones were going faster than he thought, and at an unpredictable trajectory at that. A girl examinee pushed him aside if he wasn't going to attack, and let Estel take the stage. Estel used the fourth wave stone edge, and turned to Elio with a mocking smirk. Did he say predict the trajectory? This isn't a shooting gallery, it's a magic exam, you know? A professor watched from above, finding Estel amazing for being able to handle the fourth wave so well at her age. The bold professor next to him agreed. At first glance, it seems like a chaotic test where everyone indiscriminately targets the dummy, but now he understands that it's meant to measure one's ability to command others as a noble. A third voice spoke from behind them, claiming that what one should truly rely on is ultimately their own strength. It's the suspicious-looking old man from before. The professor whispered to the bald professor, asking who that was since he seemed quite aged for a teacher. The bald professor explained that he is a special advisor advisor at their school. Even when he was newly appointed, that old man was already advanced in years. Back to the examinees, Shivan commended Estel for a job well done, and even clapped his hands. Then, he launched the second wave flame arrow to shoot down the dummies. Beating a child is hardly something to boast about. What's required is not mere victory, it's about achieving overwhelming results. The faces of those who laughed at him for using the second wave are now frozen in shock after the power he displayed. Shivan turned back to Estel, using her own words against her and causing her to blush in embarrassment. The girl examinee pointed out that what he cast was just the second wave. Even a captured person could handle such trivial magic. Shivan agreed that was quite reasonable. On top of the environment provided to true people's children, his body has been honed with countless layers of wisdom and his true specialty. He raised his hands and cast the fifth wave to nitrous chain, leaving everyone looking defeated. Now then, the bell signaling the end should ring right about now. However, a professor came rushing to urgently whisper to the examiner about a late arriving examinee. That's not supposed to be possible according to the rules, but this one is an exception. There's little time left, but the examiner decided to include the latecomer in the exam. As if on cue, a girl entered the examination hall. She is the eldest daughter of the Marquis of the Frontier, Aka, Ciel. She immediately launched the fifth wave Ignis assault, mumbling about meeting the headmaster. Shivan could not believe it. There's no way. This appearance. This magic. How could he ever forget? It's the girl who killed him. No, can he even call her a girl? That was 13 years ago. If she still looks the same, she must be a demon or a succubus. She is the something that killed him. Wait, is she even the same individual? What could her purpose in coming here to Lago Mare be? Finally, the bell rang, signaling the end of the exam. Many of them may already know, but at Lago Mare, it is customary for the top-ranking student to report directly to the headmaster when the exam concludes. That is indeed a significant status symbol in noble society. Those ranked second and below are just the rest of the crowd. Only the first place truly holds value. The examiner announced that the results of both the written and practical exams have Shivan Damien and Ciel Aka tied for first place. According to the rules, the top rank must be limited to one person. The method is as prescribed. It will be settled in a duel. The two stood on the stage, with examinees and professors alike watching from the sidelines. Shivan thought Gouch might step in to stop it, but knowing the eldest son of the merchant family was watching, he changed his mind. If Shivan claims first place, he can also secure funding. It seems finances take priority over his own child. The examiner will be officiating the duel, and he expects a fair and honorable battle between the both of them. Now, let the match begin. The two gathered magic, Ciel launching the fifth wave Ignis assault, and Shivan cancelling it with the fifth wave to nitrous chain. Then, he crouched down, his hand touching the ground as he used replication magic to copy the tiles and raise the ground. Ciel was standing on up to the sky, causing her to stumble. Shivan was about to shoot her down with a fire arrow when she cast the sixth wave Caridosphere, hoping the headmaster would watch her. The professor's flabber was gasted. He can't believe that she can handle the sixth wave at that age. The bald professor from behind ordered the others to call for the medical team just in case something happens to Shivan, but the advisor stopped them. Shivan stood there confidently, blocking the attack with his bare hands. If he correctly understands the theory, the basics are the same. He's prepared. And with that, he cancelled the sixth wave. At the same time, Ciel collapsed on the ground after stumbling earlier. Can she even dodge in that stance? Shivan used his magic to replicate the sixth wave that she launched and without a second thought, dropped it down on her. This is his return strike. After the duel, Shivan, the top-ranking student, came to the headmaster's office to report about the completion of the exam. Inside were the advisor, along with the girl he was with before, and a sleeping old man sitting on the desk. It was the girl who spoke first, teasing Shivan for causing a scene again and leaving a huge hole in the training grounds. Fortunately, no one was hurt since he didn't directly attack Ciel. Shivan apologized, saying he'll ask his father to increase the donation instead. The girl smirked. Looks like he's got a spirited personality. He can think of her as the headmaster's secretary and bodyguard all in one. Her name is Audrey, and this old gentleman here is... Oh no, he began melting like a candle. Seconds later, the sleeping old man raised his head. Tada. This is the great sage Lago himself, the 100-wise noble, Lago, the first great sage from about 200 years ago, the originator of modern string magic. Shivan never imagined he was still alive. Lago placed a crystal sphere down on the table. He confirmed that the blood flowing in Shivan's body is certainly that of the Damien ducal house. Yet there's something, a tiny trace of an alien element mixed in, and above all, a power and skill far beyond what his age should allow. He'll be direct. Just who is he, and what is he hiding? That made Shivan smirk. As expected of Lago, to see that much through him. Audrey laughed, wondering whether that was a confession. But no, it's not. Today Shivan brought something more interesting than his own identity. He's certain that among the successful candidates, there is an assassin targeting the headmaster. It's Ciel. She is not human, but a weapon in human form. So, what does he say? Shall they join forces? His enemy also uses that weapon. His archie-enemy, a certain great noble. Soon, as proof that he's trustworthy, he will set his head on a tray. At the Damien residence, a party was held to celebrate Shivan passing at the top of his class. Noblemen approached Gouch, praising his son. One of them, the one with the hat, leaned closer and whispered that he'd like to move forward with the loan they discussed. Shivan watched them all mingle, finding it amazing how much things can change just based on the impression the heir makes. For a noble house, the heir is its other face, just as important as the head of the family. If the heir is brilliant, people, money, everything will flock. And the opposite is just as true. Gouch couldn't help but laugh in happiness. He was holding his head in his hands when the hawk fell, but who would have thought the talentless little chick would take flight as a swan? There isn't a single cloud over his family's future. A son who can make him feel that way, that is the ideal heir. This party is a victory salute. It's proof that Shivan has become the ideal heir. Meanwhile, Azed walked around with a tray, offering drinks to the guests. However, Estel refused to take anything that a captive had touched. Azed could only stand there in disbelief. Shivan noticed what had happened and brought her out to the balcony and told her to go and stay in the annex. And she is not to come out until the party is over. When he entered back inside, Elio and the others approached him, hoping he'd introduce them to Gouch. Shivan agreed with a smile. There's also one more thing he needed to confirm. He made his way towards Gouch and introduced them one by one. There's Elio of the Gehring family, Estel of the Silver family, and now, the thing he's curious about, how will he react to Ciel from the house of Arca? Shivan watched intently as Gouch flashed them a bright smile. He's heard all about Ciel. To be able to wield the sixth strain at her age, that's truly impressive. He then patted Shivan on the shoulder and said competing with talented friends is a good thing, so he must apply himself as well. Shivan answered affirmatively, but deep inside, he's confused as hell. Did Gouch forget because it was long ago? That can't be it. Most likely, his memory was altered and he remembers the night's finishing rain instead of Ciel. Gouch leaned in to whisper that Ciel is a fine choice. The fact that she's a woman is most convenient. If they can bring her in successfully, her lands, her fortune, and her talented bloodline will all belong to their family. However, their conversation was cut short when a nobleman asked what reward Gouch was going to give to Shivan since he did pass at the top of his class. After all, Gouch turned to Shivan and asked him what he wanted. He'll definitely give him anything. To his surprise, Shivan refused. About the house, the people, the money, the magic, and the weapon calling herself Ciel, the things Shivan wanted, he's already received them all. The nobleman praised how modest he was, but Gouch reminded him that he'll be the one who loses face if he just refuses. Shivan smirked. Well then, since his offering, there is just one thing. He'll come to receive it later. Gouch agreed without any hesitation. And so, the party continued until late. In the middle of the night, Gouch woke up, feeling thirsty. Did he drink a little too much? He got up and lifted the pitcher to pour water onto his glass. However, it was empty. He called out to the servants, ordering them to give him water, but crickets. No one's responding. He left his room to check the hall, and as expected, there's no one outside. Are they asleep? He walked around the house, checking their rooms and the kitchen, and called for someone, but no one's around. What is going on? Just then, Shivan appeared behind him and almost gave him a heart attack. Shivan had a smirk on his face as he stated that he came to receive his reward. He did promise he'd give him anything, didn't he? Gouch told him he'd give it later, and asked if he knew why the servants weren't here. Shivan actually gave the servants 2 days off to celebrate, and at his suggestion, his mother has gone to a relative's estate. That's why no one is here. No one at all. Shivan finally raised his head to meet Gouch's eyes, his expression dripping with malice. As for his reward, he requests his head. Gouch stepped back in fear, questioning his identity and what he's done with Shivan. Shivan stepped forward one step at a time, claiming that he was indeed Shivan, and at the same time, he was not. Yes, this was all part of someone's plan. He asked him where he thought he went wrong, and what did he think was the mistake? Those words, Gouch heard them before. Could it be that his Rain? Bingo. For a moment, he saw Rain in front of him instead of Shivan, causing him to scream in fear, and claimed that that was impossible. Then, he gathered magic to shoot out a 5th strain, but was stopped by Shivan's fire arrow. Shivan aimed a number of fire arrows towards him, asking if he had any last words. Gouch desperately begged to be spared. If he does, then he'll give him all his money, lands, and also his vast connections. But those, they all become Shivan's when he's dead, though. In another part of the estate, Azed checked the hall the party was held in. It seems to be over, but nobody's around. What could be going on? As she was looking around, she noticed a vase of flowers and was reminded of Rain. That time at the balcony, and moments of their childhood together. how he taught her magic, how he acted like an older brother. She let herself cry for a moment before exploring the halls once again. That's when she heard someone running to her direction. It was Gouch, screaming for help. When he noticed her presence, he quickly grabbed her shoulders and ordered her to call the guards and the coachman. But instead of obeying, AZ asked if he was alone, and upon confirming that he was, she couldn't help but smile. She's been waiting for this day for so long. She cast the first strain acuteness and stabbed him in the neck with the stem of the flower she was holding. To get the perfect chance to reliably finish off this cautious man, she's been honing just this one spell all this time. This is vengeance for her brother, Rain. Blood splattered out of Gouch's neck, his eyes bulging out of their sockets. Even in his final moments, all he could think about was his greed. Was the future he saw a fake? And just like that, he collapsed dead on the floor. AZ fell to her knees. She did it. She finally avenged Rain. At that moment, Shivan appeared. AZ stood back up and confessed her sins. She had laid her hands upon her master and a true noble, Gouch Damien, so she's ready for any punishment. Shivan asked for her reason, and she calmly answered that it was because Gouch murdered the one she adored with all her heart. If she's prepared herself for the consequences, then it can't be helped. Shivan aimed a fire arrow towards her. AZ closed her eyes to prepare herself, but to her surprise, the fire arrow did not make contact with her. Instead, it hit the flower she used to stab Gouch. Ignoring her confusion, Shivan claimed that a ruffian broke into this mansion in the early hours of tonight. Information must have leaked that the security was light. The scoundrel despicably took the air hostage, killed the Duke, and fled somewhere. This is the story they'll be going with. AZ's eyes widened in confusion. What is he saying? This was her doing. But before she could finish her sentence, Shivan grabbed her hand and with his magic, he commanded her to be silent and assured her that it's fine this way. AZ immediately recognized that action. It's the same thing Rain did that day. He doesn't know how he did it. No, it doesn't even matter. But why? Shivan claimed that he still had things he needed to do, but she's already done enough. He placed a kiss at the back of her hand, stating that she fulfilled her great wish, and in doing so, she died once. From now on, she should go and find her own happiness. He thanked her and bid goodbye to his most precious person. The next day, Shivan sat on his bed, thinking about the story he's going to tell everyone. Also, should he let out a scream or something? AZ pointed out that a scream wouldn't reach anyone since there's no one else in the mansion. Shivan agreed, thinking of just taking a horse, when he suddenly realized something. She's still here. But why? AZ questioned if there was anything strange about that. After all, she is his maid, isn't she? Serving him is her greatest happiness. In that case, he'll be counting on her from now on. Suddenly, she pouted and leaned closer to him. Isn't he going to call her his most precious person? Shivan just looked away and claimed he was joking. If the day ever comes when he can clearly reveal his true identity, that will be great. Meanwhile at the academy, Largo read the news about what happened to Gouch and immediately thought of Shivan. Audrey leaned on his desk. The theory is that he's just at that awkward age where he wanted to say cringy things. But no, that wasn't it at all. Largo couldn't help but question Shivan's identity. Audrey agreed that he's creepy, but there's also a theory that he could become their savior. At the same time, somewhere in the Empire, the Silver family was looking out the window, where a bunch of bodies were rotting while tied and hung up on wood. 1 month after Gouch Damien's death, Shivan continued on with his academy life. He was currently in a lecture, the professor talking about magic, which has now become a required part of a noble's education. But until 247 years ago, it was thought to be nothing but a fairy tale. The professor called on Estelle and asked who the person that overturned that common knowledge was. Estelle confidently answered that it was the first grand sage, Largo. Rediscovered and systemized by him, magic developed by leaps and bounds. That is correct. Though, Shivan highly doubts that anyone actually believes the rumor that the Grand Sage is still serving as the Academy's headmaster. The professor continued with the lecture, discussing the great achievement of Grand Sage Largo, which was his theory of magic as the superposition of waves. The waves of power circulating the world, and the waves of power within oneself. By overlapping these, one can manifest a desired form of power, and that is magic. The more waves one overlaps, the more advanced the magic becomes, and the difficulty jumps exponentially. This functional and practical magic, organized by the numbers 1 to 8, is what's mainstream today. On the other hand, the kinds of things spoken of legend such as giving life to a clod of earth, controlling a person with a single word, and changing one into 1,000, are magic worthy of being called mystery, which is classified as ancient magic, under the 9th strain. Replication was one of those. The basic principles of ancient mystery are the same. However, they are so complex compared to modern magic that most remain unanalyzed, or are black box stuck midway. That's exactly why, when they finally and completely unravel them, honor and riches are guaranteed. The morning lecture finally came to an end, with the professor reminding them not to be late for the practical training this afternoon. They heard the instructor for the practical training is extremely strict about tardiness. It was so bad, the upperclassmen in the dorm don't even want to talk about it. And so, the chaos from Gouch's sudden death finally settled down. As someone who inherited the family headship while still in school, Shivan was living a busy but peaceful student life. On the surface, at least. He rejected the invitations of some female students for lunch and instead turned to Ciel, who was being chased by Elio and Denari in hopes of inviting her for some tea at the nearby lake. Although, they were coldly ignored. She is Ciel Arca, an assassin targeting the headmaster. No, a weapon. Shivan recalled the conversation he had with the headmaster a few days ago. Largo, who was in the form of Audrey's doll, asked if he should be offering his condolences, but upon Shivan's refusal and admittance, he finally confirmed his suspicion. It seems it really was Shivan who did it. Once again, he can't help but question his identity and objective. Shivan refused to give him a straight answer. However, he can assure him that he's not an enemy. If he's going to keep making moves at this academy, there's no benefit in making an enemy of the headmaster. If they have a common enemy, he'll just use him instead. But if Largo's still in doubt, he can take care of that assassin who's after him. But before Shivan could even finish his sentence, Largo cut him off to stop him from doing so. Shivan made it clear that he has already lost that weapon once. It may be hard to believe from her appearance, but that's the kind of being she is. Largo is well aware. There's no lie in his words, but he wants to save her. Shivan calls her a weapon, not a girl, but she is a human being. He has to save that child. Shivan questioned what exactly he was saving her from, but Largo had no answer. If he knew that, he'd have done it already. If Shivan can save her, then he promised to spare no effort in helping him. But he absolutely must not kill her. Whether Shivan saves her or kills her, first, he needs information. He approached Ciel and asked for a moment of her time to talk. It's about when he met with the headmaster. There's something he wanted to inform her of as well, as the runner-up. Ciel stopped in her tracks at the mention of the headmaster, and immediately agreed, confusing Elio and Denari, whom she ignored earlier. Shivan led her to an old training ground the professors told him about. Magic is something invoked by overlapping the world's power with one's own. This place is cut off from the outside, so the world's waves can't reach it, hindering the activation of magic. A relic from an era that planned for combat where magic couldn't be used, it seems. It's the perfect place for a private talk. Still, looking at her face to face again, it's very clear. He can't sense any will or vitality from her at all. What exactly is he supposed to save this from? Ciel turned to face him and asked what it was he wanted to talk about regarding the headmaster. Shivan was about to explain, when they suddenly heard the door close shut and lock from the outside. It was Elio and Denari's doing. Shivan tried to open it from inside, but it wouldn't budge. It seems locking it from the outside is the mechanism that completely disables magic use. Is this a prank by someone? Such a childish thing to do. No, wait. They are children, so of course they are childish. He wonders if they did this knowing they couldn't use magic. If so, that's quite malicious. Then again, it's just a child's shallow prank. This is a training facility, after all. He turned back around to face Ciel and assure her that he'd find a way out, when she suddenly started screaming and tweaking. Seeing as she was about to collapse, Shivan rushed to catch her, questioning what just happened. Could this be part of the prank? No way. Is it a sudden illness? Can that even happen to a weapon? He shouted, asking if Ciel could hear his voice. Finally, she calmed down and asked for his identity. Shivan's eyes widened in confusion. What's this? She feels like a completely different person. She was about to say more, when she started screaming again, her body heating up and revealing a seal on her back. It activates by being carved into the flesh, probably an ancient magic that's officially unanalyzed, but it's similar to the formula Audrey uses to control her dolls. Is it a type that receives commands from the outside? That's it. It's this room. In exchange for being cut off from outside interference, this spell formula is malfunctioning. Largo did say he wanted to save her, so if he can get her outside, the pain should stop. He must quickly head to the emergency exit. No, wait. This is an unknown spell formula. He can't decipher all of it, but, as long as it is a formula, every single part must have a purpose. If he can just figure out that part, there, he found it. At the training ground for the students' practical training, Elio and Denari snickered with each other. They didn't hear any sound like the door being destroyed, so they were certain that Shivan and Ciel were stuck inside. But contrary to their expectation, the two appeared like nothing happened. The instructor turned to them and noticed Ciel's clothing. It's an unusual style, but isn't that a battle uniform? Shivan explained that her uniform ended up tearing, and once the instructor gave his permission addition, their practical training continued without any more mishaps. Now then, the problem is what happens after this. Once the bell rang, Shivan brought Ciel to meet with Audrey and Largo at the same spot. Largo's eyes widened, questioning what Ciel was doing here. Shivan calmly explained that it's necessary, and that he wants to bring Ciel to the headmaster. They can do that, can't they? Audrey hesitated. If that's a joke, it's not funny. But Shivan is serious. Largo should be too. He will spare no effort in helping him. That's what he said, right? In the end, Largo had no choice but to let them in his office. Audrey frowned at Shivan. Largo is here specifically so he won't meet with anyone. So what is it that he's after by forcing a meeting? It's nothing. Making them meet is the objective itself. If Shivan's prediction is correct, something will happen because of this. Meanwhile, at a lake near the academy, a lump of flesh submerged underwater started to buzz before exploding, wetting the two idiots, Elio and Denari, during their tea time. At least Shivan somehow got to pay them back for what they did at the training ground. The explosion rang throughout the entire building, including the headmaster's office. This caused Audrey to panic and question what was going on. On the other hand, Shivan finally confirmed his suspicion. It really is self-destruction. To think a replication could have this much power, how impressive. Seeing Audrey's confused expression, he explained that Ciel was originally supposed to end up like that. Flashback to when Shivan analyzed the seal on Ciel's back. He found the main spell and the receiver connected to it. Good thing it was a formula physically carved in. He can rewrite it even without magic. Just as he thought, it's similar to Audrey's. If he just adjusted it to operate normally on his wavelength. Alright, done. With this, as long as she's near him, she'll be fine and shouldn't suffer anymore. The remaining problem is the sender. Will they notice that Ciel has left their grasp? Guess he'll go with this plan. So right after they escaped the training ground, Shivan replicated Ciel's body, spell formula, and all, returning it to the form it was in before he rewrote the formula. Replication can't duplicate living beings. All it creates is a throbbing lump of flesh. If the enemy was controlling every part of Ciel, they would have noticed immediately. However, the signal being sent to the lump of flesh hasn't changed at all. This is strange. The enemy can't distinguish between the lump of flesh and Ciel. So as not to miss this chance, he immediately sank the lump of flesh in the lake and brought Ciel to meet the headmaster. As a result, the enemy saw their chance and detonated the lump of flesh instead of Ciel. That's what happened. When they think about it, an assassination weapon that identifies and attacks targets all on its own is just too unreliable. They'd want to monitor it and make the final call themselves. That's just human nature. Audrey agreed that was clever, but she's still at the lump of flesh part. Just what the hell? At the same time, Largo seemed to have realized something. A magician who holds a grudge against Gouch Damien and uses replication. It's hard to believe, but there's no other explanation. Shivan finally let the cat out of the bag. He was prepared for Largo to see through him anyway. A secretive person can't gain trust, so he'll finally introduce his true self. He is Rain, a magician of the captive people. He is one whose soul lodged in the womb of a true citizen and was born. His purpose is to get revenge on the nobles who murdered him, to take everything from them and kill them. Before leaving, he pointed out how Ciel seemed to be special to Largo and hoped that they would build a good relationship. Once left alone, Audrey spoke about what she heard Rain used to say while he was still alive. If one loaf of bread became two, he thought two people could eat their fill. The mind and body are distinct, yet indivisible. As a puppet master, she can state that with certainty. It's impossible for the soul not to be affected by its vessel. The body of a true citizen is corrupting Rain's soul. Though, it's not like the true citizens were this way from the very beginning. It's all because Largo discovered magic. They became obsessed with power. They've even reached the point of trampling recklessly over the very mysteries of the human body. It's no surprise distortions have emerged. Largo wondered what will become of Shivan and whether there's nothing for him but to sink into the swamp of revenge until it destroys him. Audrey answered that it depends on whether or not there's anything to tether him. Largo did not respond and seemed to be deep in thought for a second before asking if they really must send Shivan to that dark silver territory. Audrey claimed that it aligns with his own objectives, so they should probably see this as a fortunate coincidence. He's bound for hell anyway. It's too late for that now. Meanwhile, Shivan checked on Ciel, asking if she was still in pain since she's been standing behind him this whole time without saying anything. She blushed, feeling embarrassed. Her clothes, isn't there too little fabric? It's likely the result of pursuing only magical efficiency. It's probably dangerous for her to return to the dorms, so he asked her to come to his estate for today. Finally, the day to depart for the Silver's territory came. Shivan is currently inside a carriage, along with AZ and Ciel. AZ asked Ciel if she she was feeling all right, to which the latter replied that she was, probably. According to Audrey's examination, there shouldn't be any issues, but still, she should let them know if she feels anything unusual. Ciel agreed, though honestly, she's not sure what normal even means anymore. Ciel Arca, the weapon that targeted the headmaster. To put it simply, she only remembered fragments of what happened before. It seemed she had been moving solely according to the commands transmitted by the engraved spell formula, without question or hesitation. When Shivan rewrote that formula, she was released, though she said her memories up until that point were foggy. Because of that, they still have no clue who the mastermind is. He did ask Audrey why it turned out like this, but she also had no idea. That's just how unanalyzed spell formulas are. She assured them not to worry as he did everything he could. Given the situation, he handled it brilliantly in more ways than one, so they can leave the rest to her. She'll handle the analysis. Shivan thought the Arca Marquisate would reach out about it, but they haven't. The situation remained stagnant, and Ciel continued to live in a room at the Damien estate. Perhaps the enemy can't move recklessly, knowing they hold proof of their conspiracy. If they can't find any answers, Ciel would at least like to thank Shivan for saving her. Although, he assured her that just doing what she can is enough. Just then, the coachman announced that they'd soon be arriving at the Silver Domain. Once they entered the city gate, Ciel noticed a scene out the window and quickly called for Shivan's attention. Outside, there were corpses tied up and hung on a wood. Those are prisoners. Seeing the situation, Shivan advised Az to not leave his side while they were here. Ciel continued to look out the window, realizing that the citizens were acting like nothing happened. They're just living their days like it's normal. So this is what the headmaster wanted to show Shivan. A few days before, Largo told him to go to the Silver Territory since they've arranged for the upcoming off-campus training to take place there. It's the perfect opportunity to step into the enemy's den, so there's no reason for Shivan to refuse. But he came here to ask why Largo's being targeted. Actually, it's deeply connected to that. He's earned the truth through his actions, so Largo will tell him everything. He truly finds Shivan terrifying. He adjusted Ciel's wavelength so she could continue living. It was an exact life-saving measure, but at the same time, it gave Shivan a hostage against him. Even that, revealing his true identity only after that point, was part of his plan. Shivan may not understand why he's so fixated on Ciel, but he wants to save them. Everyone, he wants to save every prisoner. The Trueborns have grown far too arrogant with their power to the point of defying the sanctity of life itself. And the prisoners are victims of that arrogance, so they must be saved. Shivan stated that parrots can speak fine words too. If those words aren't backed by action, they are nothing but a farce. It was a jab towards Largo, and Largo understood that as well. That is why he'll act. As one who granted magic to the Trueborn, he has a duty to stand against them, and that is why his life is being targeted. If that's the case, then why was Shivan the one being sent to the Silver Domain? Largo didn't say much, just that he'll understand once he's there. He can do whatever he deems necessary once he sees it himself. He's fulfilled Largo's wish, so he has no right to obstruct his. But if possible, when the time comes, he hopes he'd spare Estel's life. It isn't an order or a negotiation, just a wish. It seems the headmaster had long been aiding the prisoners in secret. Once that was discovered, the Empire began targeting his life, forcing him into hiding. He wants to save the prisoners. Shivan is also a prisoner. And yet, why does his mind feel so cold? Like it's rejecting the very idea of anger. Az noticed his expression and called out to him in worry, which snapped him back to reality. He assured her that he was just thinking. Just then, arrows flew towards the ground, halting the horses. It's an enemy attack. The enemies were aiming to capture Shivan only, and to kill the rest. Az took out a dagger and asked Shivan to run from the bandits, but the latter assured her that it's fine and ordered her to stay behind him. The bandits attempted to enter the carriage but was pushed back by Ciel, using the first strain, Fireball. The bandits were taken aback, but the leader stayed calm and commanded the projection squad to shift their timing and fire in sequence. Shivan watched as arrows rained down on them. This tactic, it's not about power, but numbers, not concentration, but dispersion, a saturation attack. Dismissed as a bad move in conventional tactics, this is precisely the anti-mage method devised by the lowborn who lack magic. With this strategy, the lowborn fought for 3 months, and it is said Largo Mayor's entrance exam lessons came from that campaign. Mags tend to wear light gear and form small units so they can receive the power that fills the world, and so their waves don't interfere with one another. Therefore, they are vulnerable to saturation attacks. An average mage cannot intercept them and will be overwhelmed. Even those who failed to cast a full barrier in the exam would have no recourse. Shivan informed Ciel that silver soldiers will arrive soon, so before then, he'd like to speak with the bandits. Understanding, Ciel stopped all the arrows using the 5th strain, Ignis Assault, and burned them down. Now then, shall they talk? With an innocent smile, Azad brought out a rope to tie them in. And after making sure they won't be able to try anything, Shivan asked for the leader's name. She is Erika, one of the prisoners. She said something about vengeance for her parents. Did she target Shivan to use him as a hostage against the Silver family? That's right. After all, they have long been oppressed and cannot stand it any longer. He saw it too, the corpses shown in the square. Those were her parents. For the sake of her sister who suffers from illness, her parents pleaded for treatment. And what did those people do to them? They said they would disinfect them and threw them into boiling water. She will never forget the faces of those who watched that, even in death. Shivan understands the circumstances, but now they are all his captives, so they have no choice but to follow his will. So then, he will have everyone die once for him. Finally, they arrived at the Silver Estate. Estelle came rushing out with 2 knights beside her. She heard that prisoners bandits attacked them, so she apologized on behalf of her parents who are away on business. For the prisoners to attack a duke's carriage of all things. Because of them, she's never known such disgrace and humiliation. If they wanted to attack, they should have done it outside the territory, in a place where their house wouldn't be blamed. Those useless mongrels should have cut Shivan's head off there. Anyway, she assured him that they'll impose strict punishment on the culprits, but Shivan cut her off, telling her not to trouble herself over it. More importantly, he'd like to ask that she leaves the bandits' handling to him. Estelle asked what he intended to do. It's silver law that beasts who bite humans are to be exterminated, so surely he doesn't mean to show mercy, right? Shivan gave her a smile, his relieved to hear that because he went a little overboard when he was driving them off. Because of that, the culprits' bodies ended up beyond recognition, which left him in quite a bind. If their extermination was their fate anyway, then there's no issue, is there? As proof, he escorted her to a box tied up behind the carriage and lifted the cloth, showing lumps of unrecognizable flesh underneath. The sight made Estelle smile happily like a maniac. And so, they were invited inside the estate. Estelle wanted to invite them to the main house, but the butler objected, especially not without the Lord's permission. But Estelle insisted that it's only proper since they've caused them such trouble. And on top of that, they are from a ducal house. So keeping them away out of petty pride was what's truly strange until now. The Damien family employs prisoners and lets them live in the manor like ordinary people. Her father said they're a barbaric family, one that could one day taint the blood of trueborns, but if they look back through history, there were once humans who lay with goats and bears alike. Especially the eldest, Fork, was said to be a notorious libertine. Estelle shivered, disgusted at the thought of a prisoner's womb carrying a trueborn seed. It's just unthinkable, let alone the reverse. But he saw it too, didn't he? Shivan is so very charming. She wonders what one must do to make a face that hideous. What sort of expression did they wear in their final moments? She doesn't want to let him go until she hears it. That's why she warned the butler to make sure not to offend them, and that they are free to use the manor as they please. Unbeknownst to them, Shivan was eavesdropping in their conversation. He waited for a few seconds before showing himself, and pretending to be looking for her. Estelle turned to him and asked if he needed something. He just wished to discuss the prisoners he exterminated. Regardless of the details, it's true that he killed subjects of another territory, so he'd like written proof that this matter will be overlooked. Estelle was impressed. As expected of the heir, he's even mindful of such formalities. However, her father is away, and the house seal is with him. In that case, her seal will do for now. He's certain that the wise daughter's seal will surely satisfy Largo. Estelle was delighted to hear that and agreed to prepare it at once, inviting him to the study. Estelle had been openly confrontational toward Shivan from the start. The reason was the difference in how they treated the prisoners. She looked down on the city nobles who treated prisoners as people. She must have found it galling that her own beliefs seemed those of a provincial mind. Perhaps even her entourage secretly mocked her for it. She couldn't help but suspect as much. Upon stamping her seal, Shivan held her hand where the seal was in and thanked her for it. She must be pleased to finally have someone whose actions seem to understand her. Though of course, he has no intention of getting friendly with her whatsoever. At the former Laurelive capital, Kefis, a letter arrived for the Lord of Silver. It bears Estelle's seal, but the handwriting's different. Is it a scribe's work? However, upon reading the letter, his eyes widened in panic and he immediately rushed to the location written in the letter. Shivan watching from the window. The Lord of Silver barged inside, questioning if it's true that prisoners attacked Estelle's carriage, and asked about her condition. He walked over to the bed. All he could think about were the possible rumors that would spread among the nobles and cause a disaster. Once he saw her ruined and bandaged face, he didn't even show a speck of concern. No, he did, but only towards his future and the plans that are now ruined. At that moment, laughter came from behind. Looks like it's self-preservation in the end. That's why he let his guard down in panic. Erika thought that seeing his family's death might make him taste the same pain as they did, but to think he's incapable of even human compassion. That face, he must be Lago Silva. Lago's eyes widened in confusion and questioned why they were here. Could they be the ones who did this? No, the letter said the bandits were dead. Erica stepped forward, explaining that the corpses were fakes, or should she say replicas. She has good news for him. The one lying there isn't Estelle, but also a replica. Made while she was sleeping, most likely. That means she's alive. For now, by someone's will. And the bad news is that he will die here, and his daughter will have her own share of hell to endure. All according to the so-called Grand Sage's plan. Truly, what a monster he turned out to be. Recognition flashed through Lago's mind at the mention of the great sage of the replicas, Rain. He was alive. But that's impossible. He quickly tried to explain that he was only forced into it by Damien, and he has no reason to be punished for revenge. Erica glared at him. Has he forgotten what he did to her parents? If so, then he deserves death as punishment. And with that, she pierced his stomach with a sword. Once it was all over, Shivan appeared along with Ciel. Erica turned to them and couldn't help but ask what in the world was going on. Why are they alive, and Lago is dead? This doesn't make sense. Just as Shivan said, he'll have them die once, that way they can have their revenge. Erica raised her voice, claiming that wasn't an answer. He said that, invited them here, but no matter how they look at it, it's a trap. He gave them a sliver of hope only to snatch it away before their eyes, to revel in their despair. Even knowing that, they had no choice. They were ready to die as long as they could leave even one wound on him. So why? Shivan claimed that no trueborn would ever help prisoners without expecting something in return, not for mere personal grudges. A prisoner woman finally understood. He used them to eliminate a political rival, didn't he? He just doesn't want to dirty his own hands, selling out his own kin. Another wondered what will happen to them now that they are no longer needed. But before they could say anything more, Erica stopped them. Everyone has reasons they can't speak of, so they shouldn't become the sort who mocks and suspects without understanding. She saw it, the maid serving Shivan, the prisoner woman. Her eyes hold deep trust and compassion. She's never seen one of their kind look at a trueborn that way. That means he's different from the others. But seeing that Shivan isn't saying anything about it, Erica decided to just leave it at that. However, he kept his promise, and they fulfilled their wish. That alone is undeniable. They've already died once. If there's anything they can do, he just needs to say the word. Shivan did think of finding an ally with whoever's gathering the disoriented prisoners, but he didn't expect it to turn out like this. Still, now he can finally aim for the real target. When faced with a harsh choice, what do people choose to believe in? Is it friendship? Or love and compassion? Something beautiful? Something righteous? People believe in what affirms themselves. They decide that what doesn't deny them is what's right, beautiful, and full of love. If one simply keeps their back straight and acts, trust will eventually turn against them. Estelle was seething in anger after hearing about her father's passing. She ordered the butler to immediately find the culprit, burn those criminals alive, and feed them to the beasts. The butler tried to calm her down and asked her to consider her family's affairs. Now that the master has passed and the lady has collapsed from grief, the future of House Silver rests entirely upon her. Estelle glared at him, questioning whether he's suggesting to just let the one who killed her father go free. The butler calmly explained that the soldiers are searching day and night, and they've also increased the number of guards. The search for the culprit is a soldier's duty, and what she must do is to continue employing those soldiers. The time for playing games is over. Left alone in her room, Estelle wondered what was wrong with everyone. Is she the only one who truly grieves her father's death? How can they think about family affairs at a time like this? Just then, a knock came on her door. She angrily ordered whoever it was to come in already since it's open, but upon seeing that it was Shivan, she immediately regretted her rudeness and apologized for what had happened while he was staying at their estate. Shivan grabbed her shoulders and assured her she needn't worry about that. Right now, she should focus on taking care of herself rather than the territory. Estelle sadly looked down. She wants to, but everyone keeps saying that she has to protect this house. Shivan dramatically questioned why. Even though she's suffering the most, she's still enduring this unbearable pain, isn't she? Estelle agreed. He's right. He also lost his father too, didn't he? Shivan held her hands and sympathized with her. Estelle's expression turned into a scowl as she understood what she must do now. It's to leave the territory matters to the household and avenge her father's death. About that, there's something that's been bothering Shivan. Lago was killed in a detached building, but the culprit was never seen and escaped immediately after. Could a mere criminal have done such a thing? Does he mean someone inside the household might have helped them? That's right. It means anyone in the house, including him, could be a suspect. Estelle didn't want to believe it. Wasn't he with the criminals when they were caught? He was spared punishment, but there's no reason to doubt her comrades. Her father's death must have made her overly suspicious. However, Shivan's next words made her second-guess everything. For instance, maybe there was someone who'd become overly nervous about visitors coming and going. Her thoughts immediately went to the butler, making Shivan smirk. This is what he was aiming for. Later, Estelle called for the butler, who complained about her decision. Wasn't she supposed to entrust everything to him? Estelle stated that Shivan is the same age as her, yet already the head of a ducal house, so what's wrong with borrowing from his experience? The butler protested, saying she shouldn't trust unconditionally, but Estelle cut him off, questioning if he doesn't trust the ducal family or if he has some other reason for his hesitation. She's not foolish enough to entrust tasks to just anyone. Besides, as long as she has the seal of the Lord, it can't turn into a fatal problem. If he's that worried, then he should watch over it himself. Once she left the room, the butler secretly clicked his tongue in anger. Lies gain more persuasiveness when mixed with truth. It's a lie that the servant let in the criminals, of course, but the only one left was the young lady herself. Ah, well, maybe she's capable of doing something beyond Shivan's expectations. The butler, he thought about that much too, didn't he? What a coincidence. Shivan too. Later that night, Shivan came back to his room and sighed as he sat down on the couch. Physically, there's a limit to how much he can endure. Az brought him tea and asked what will become of this land from now on. Well, he plans to leave the actual administration to Erica, but formally, it will remain as silver territory for now. Az smiled at the thought of Erica. She's sure that if she governs it well, even the captured citizens should have a bright future ahead. However, Shivan didn't think so. He's certain that this land will slowly wither away. This is the largest granary in the region, the stomach of the common people. As long as this place remains, no real blow can be dealt to them. That's why he'll leave it to Erica. Managing the territory, the farming, and the economy requires immense accumulated experience and knowledge. A farmer's daughter can't overcome that wall with enthusiasm alone. The commoners enjoying their newfound freedom will gradually rot away. The other nobles realized it too late, and all that will remain are barren fields and the bones of livestock. It'll be a massive blow to commoner society. Az wondered if it would really turn out like that, and Shivan responded affirmatively because that's how the world works. But she didn't need to worry because he won't let the commoners starve to death or anything. Az looked out the window, wondering if it really will turn out that way. At the same time, the prisoners were all thrilled to know that Erica will become the true ruler of this land when everything is in place. Shivan, that boy, he might be hiding some dangerous secret within, but still, he's the one they must rely on. And for that, he is their rightful master. To think they'd live to see this day. When the former lord's house rises again to reclaim its seat, that will be the time. They destroyed a wall in their hideout, and inside it is the wisdom and knowledge secretly passed down for generations and the records preserved for centuries. These are treasures their comrades protected with their lives. And now, they'll be offering it to Erica so she could make use of them. Erica agreed without a doubt, accepting the cloak and scrolls offered to her. The next day, Estelle's face contorted in anger upon hearing of the captives' underground organization's resistance. She ordered the butler to send more soldiers until they are completely wiped out, but the butler protested. Any more than this and it will start cutting into their pay. However, Estelle did not care. The captives' blood is their pay. As if on cue, Shivan arrived to quell her anger like a knight in shining armor. He assured her that it's all right and everyone must be burning with the same anger. Estelle immediately calmed down and asked what they should do since the captives kept foolishly resisting again and again. Shivan pretended to think before suggesting she travel to the capital and ask for the knight's cooperation, the one said to be under the imperial family's jurisdiction. They are the sword that protects the order of true citizen society. To the captives, they are the symbol of death. And the Demiel family, who has led the order for generations, is not a stranger to them. As long as she brings the silver family seal, everything should go smoothly. Estelle agreed. The head, Helman Demiel, even attended her father's funeral. After all, the butler was about to say something when Shivan spoke, advising Estelle that it's more efficient to end it all at once rather than wasting time doing nothing. Besides, what knight could refuse to come running to the aid of a lady in distress? They shall bring the sword of justice upon this land. Estelle excitedly agreed. They shall, without fail. The butler could only watch in horror. Anyway, the headmaster said not to kill Estelle. Though his reasoning differs somewhat, Shivan agrees. If her whole family were wiped out, a new lord would be appointed in her place, and control would revert to the oppression of the poor once again. That is how power works. Such an ending, in a play, it'd warrant a refund. So just a little bit, he'll change the script. And with that, Estelle finally left to ask for the knight's cooperation. 2 weeks later, Estelle came back in distress and went straight to Shivan, who claimed to have been worried as she was gone for so long. The thing is, she followed his advice, and when she went to ask the knights for help, they kept her waiting for 5 days. The knight in charge told her that the deployment of the knights allows no mistake. That's why House Demiel employs both heraldic officers and appraisers. As a result of strict examination, the seal she provided was counterfeit. It took 3 days to prove her identity and be released. She's never experienced such humiliation before. There must be some mistake. The real criminal should be the one imprisoned. Now the investigation into the culprit is back to square one. What should she do? Shivan just smirked. It seems Demiel's appraisers took 5 days to determine authenticity. That's good data for the next trial run. You know, when he was once accused of making a forgery, someone defended him, saying he could never make something that perfect. Along with his joy, he felt a tinge of frustration. So he secretly kept training, and it paid off. He's now surpassed the precision of his previous work. Estelle's face filled with worry as she questioned what he was saying. Does Shivan need to explain? He thought she'd be a little more perceptive. Estelle covered her ears and told him to stop. She doesn't want to hear it. However, Shivan continued. 5 days while she awaited a reply, 3 days in captivity, add the travel time, and that's over 10 days total. That's plenty of time to do anything. Estelle couldn't believe it. No, she didn't want to believe it, because he's just like her, right? LOL, them? The same? She has quite the sense of humor. Shivan flicked his fingers, and as if on cue, the door opened, and Erika and the others entered. Even the butler is on his side now. Estelle fell to her knees, unable to comprehend what was happening. Prisoners? Why are they here? No way. These people killed her father. They've been deceiving them all along? Wow, is she really that dense? Well, she can take it that way if she wishes. However, even if Shivan hadn't been here, their blades would have eventually reached her all the same. Even if that was true, Estelle believed that the butler who had long served was keeping watch. That's right, he was watching. Watching only, however. He's already been promised proper treatment from now on. Estelle wondered why he would do such a thing. What's his aim? What did they ever do? Seeing that she still doesn't understand the gravity of her own actions, Erika glared at her, her hand on the hilt of her sword, ready to draw at any moment. Estelle gritted her teeth. This is a clear takeover, an act of usurpation. She will drag them out to the rightful place and deliver a just verdict upon them. Shivan smirked. Isn't she misunderstanding something? Usurpation? What nonsense. This land has always belonged to House Silver. Until now and from here on. They are merely offering a little bit of assistance. Estelle clenched her fist in anger and cast the 4th strained stone blade to block their sight and run away. The manor's been seized, but not the citizens' hearts. If she gets to town and calls for help, there's still hope. Upon arriving at the square, the citizens flocked towards her. She smiled, thinking she was a revered lady, and was about to ask for their help when the people beat her to it. They were also in need of her help. They were all dismissed, soldiers and tenant farmers alike, who worked under House Silver. Because of that, the security in the frontier has become dreadful. They fear being attacked any day now, so they wanted her to do something about it. However, Estelle did not care and told them to handle their own problems themselves. More importantly, prisoners have infested the manor, they should do something about that. Murmurs began to spread among the people. If the Lord's mansion has fallen, does that mean no help's coming? They have to run before it's too late. Estelle stopped them, asking them to risk their lives to reclaim it. However, she was met with their contemptuous gaze. Just then, a shout rang throughout the square. Hundreds of prisoners were coming. It's a prisoner uprising. The citizens panicked, wondering what they should do, when their eyes all landed on Estelle. They just have to hand over the Lord's family, right? Estelle fell to the floor, begging them to, but it's too late. Their hands are already everywhere on her body in an attempt to offer her to the prisoners. That's when Shivan arrived with Erika. He asked them to calm down and introduced himself. But even after knowing that he was a duke, they still hesitated. After all, the one behind him is a criminal. That's right, she's the leader of the rebels. But they are all mistaken about her. He threw the tied-up butler on the ground, claiming that the savagery of the prisoners was all plotted by him. He's the real villain here. It has become clear that their plan was to take over House Silver and Estelle as well. The people started to believe his lies, and to end this grandiose performance, Shivan claimed the House Silver to be the victims, and stopped them from blaming Estelle. Isn't that right? The butler tried to tell the truth, but was beaten up by the prisoners. And Estelle, she can't dare deny it. Defeated, she admitted that Shivan was right. That it was him who stopped it all, and that it was all a conspiracy targeting their house. She has no allies left, nowhere, no one. Shivan crouched down before her and asked her to leave the rest to him, to which she agreed without protest. All right, this will do. From now on, Erika will effectively govern, but problems pile high. The friction between true citizens and prisoners, the finances, and security, she can't possibly handle it. This land is heading for ruin. If he, a noble, intervenes, it will only bind them deeper under the true citizens' control. Destruction is needed, quiet and absolute destruction. He's leaving nothing in the hands of the trueborn. This too is vengeance. Erika promised to take responsibility for this land. As one who bears the blood of its former lord, she will meet his expectations. At the Damien estate, AZ asked Shivan how the committee's progress was going. Well, it's finally halfway through. It's been a month since they returned from the Silver Territory. Shivan's gone back to his life as a student. Since her father's death, Estelle has been staying at the academy, but the same uneasiness remains. However, there are still some new problems. They were so focused on Largo and the prisoners that they missed the submission deadline and had to write double. The official reason for their visit to the Silver Territory was extracurricular training. So yes, there is a report. Shivan suggested using duplicate for the rest. However, AZ stopped him. They'd catch him right away anyway. Still, there's a report to finish. Bummer. If the headmaster could alter their destination, he could have handled that too. Since he seemed a bit tired, AZ suggested taking a break because overworking himself isn't healthy. Shivan agreed and had tea with Ciel. AZ placed a plate of sandwich on the table, with Shivan praising her improvement. That's not it, though. The recipe's the same, the ingredients just improved in quality. Shivan asked where they were from. Apparently, it's from the Silver Territory. The quality of produce from Silver has greatly improved recently. Perhaps Eric is doing well, after all. It hasn't been long since Silver's new regime took power. Things can temporarily improve at first, that's not entirely unexpected. But once it declines again, the despair of the true citizens will be that much greater. One look at his face and AZ could tell what he was thinking. She asked if he really believed that Erika would fail. Shivan answered confidently. He'd even bet on it. It's not because she's incompetent, but because governing a territory isn't something an amateur can handle. Is he sure about that? Somehow, AZ can't quite believe it'll end that way. In that case, Shivan suggested they go visit Silver themselves. He wanted to check the situation anyway, and besides, he's run out of material for his report. He wants to do some field research. AZ wants to believe that a prisoner could rise to power and restore it beautifully, but such a thing can never happen. Never. That's what Shivan believed. But why the hell is the town so freaking bright? He's confused as hell. They're actually getting along? They're actually doing well? With a smile on her face, AZ asked what they should wager. He said he'd bet, didn't he? Well. Would sweets be too lame? At that moment, Erika approached and welcomed them to Silver. It seems like she's doing well. If anything, too well. She shouldn't have the knowledge or insight needed for governance. If another noble is backing her, that could be troublesome, but Erika honestly stated that they weren't really doing that well. It was just trial and error, over and over. She's descended from the great lord who once ruled these lands, you know? Records and books from that time still remain, and all the clan heads are lending her their strength. That's how she's managing. But that only confused Shivan more. Anyway, he said he was here for inspection, so she'll show him around the town. She brought them to the fields, where flowers now bloomed beautifully. Silver's way of killing and displaying prisoners wasted precious labor and posted hygiene problems. Their parents would surely be proud to know that they were the last victims. Thinking about it, there were hints. Young leaders uniting under oppression, preparing for war, knowing old lowlife army tactics from ages past. But still, Shivan didn't think it'd turn out like this. What should they do? At this rate, it'll strike a blow to Trueborn society. Noticing his expression, AZ suggested seeing the city since they are on inspection. Shivan finally snapped out of his thoughts and looked up. The dark silver domain from before, littered with corpses, is now a beautiful and peaceful territory. This site is all thanks to him. Few know of his true efforts, but Erika will never forget. So when he needs help, he can call her. She'll come to his side without fail. The people's smiles, their peace, all of it was etched in Shivan's memory. After returning to the academy, he passed his report to the headmaster. In the end, the prisoners were saved by their own hands. As for Estelle, the ladies are watching over and tending to her. As for what kind of life she's living now, it's not something fit for a gentleman's eyes. The maids who've seen it refuse to speak of it much. Shivan won't say that she should be grateful she's alive, but she's done enough to deserve that mercy. All right then, that's all for the report. He bid goodbye and was about to leave, when Largo stopped him. There's something he should know. The homeland, the Soji Empire, is beginning to move. They're targeting him. No, they're targeting all of them. Then their goal must be the relic. Word of Ciel's whereabouts must have leaked from House Aka. It's certain that a powerful organization stands behind Ciel. The Holy Soji Empire. Could the sovereign nation of the Trueborn really be involved? Audrey reminded them to be extremely careful. Shivan appreciates the warning, but they do seem to be hiding fighting far too much. The Silver Territory ultimately turned out the way they wanted, but they mustn't get the wrong idea. His enemy is the nobles of this country, not the Empire, so he has no intention of intervening in their quarrel. It's true that Ciel is the weapon that killed him, but who blames the blacksmith for being cut by a sword? Whom he chooses as his next target, that's the only thing that interests him. Largo wondered if seeing the captured people in silver did not move him at all, and Shivan answered no, not in the slightest. Even if it had, it would still be the same. After all, he is the enemy of the trueborn nobles and of the captured people. Frankly, cutting a deal with the Empire would only make his revenge proceed more smoothly. He imagines that would be inconvenient for Largo. The question is how they can ally with the Empire. That's it. If they had a suitable token, a gift to present, the whole conversation might change. Audrey was filled with anger at the implication and was about to use her magic when Largo stopped her. He understood what Shivan was saying, he just wanted to know everything. His merely saying it won't be too late to judge after hearing it. Audrey finally calmed down and sighed. Then, she went on to tease Shivan about not having a girlfriend. After all, testing love doesn't get any attention. But he just brushed it off and instead talked about the day he came to report the entrance exam results. That day, he said Ciel was a weapon. Largo was surprised, but he didn't doubt him. So what does he know? After a moment of silence, Largo finally began to talk. That the great sage from over 200 years ago still serves as headmaster. Few know that this rumor is actually true. Why does he think that is? Oh, Ciel has a guess. Is it because magic school headmasters tend to have many secrets? That may be true, but in Largo's case, it's a little different. It was immediately after earning the title of Great Sage that he pursued immortality. His motive was simple and impure. He just didn't want to die before he could continue his research in magic. Shivan's not interested in old stories, but it seems this one isn't irrelevant, so he decided to listen. Anyway, it seems Largo's still alive now because that research succeeded. That's right. The first piece of ancient magic he ever analyzed was Return to Paradise, a dull spell that merely slows and extends life. It was also a spell riddled with countless problems. He burned his research, ensuring that no one other than himself could gain longevity. He thought he should have. Suddenly summoned to the Empire, he saw it with his own eyes in the laboratory. That experiment, one that heaven itself could never allow. A young girl sat on a chair, tied up. She is the reason the masked scientist called him here. Their mission is to offer eternal life to the imperial family, and that young girl is the test subject. It's not true immortality, but that form hasn't changed in 12 years. Largo was shocked to hear that. The return to paradise that should have been destroyed is being used. Could it have leaked from somewhere? The masked scientist picked up a weapon, claiming that it wasn't just that her lifespan has been extended. He cut her fingers off, but they regenerated almost instantly. Extending her lifespan means nothing if she's assassinated, but she possesses the power to instantly heal any wound. It's truly perfect. She was supposed to become the ultimate human, however, she doesn't grow up. No matter how long her life, if she cannot mature, there is no future. Her development stopped just before puberty. That's why he's giving Largo the mission of identifying the cause and resolving it. That girl carries royal blood, but also the blood of the tenement people, an abominable child. The royal house has even issued orders that he may cut her as he pleases. Her power is restrained by the seal, but she still possesses tremendous magic. Largo could only stare at the pitiful young girl. Truly, he was a fool. 10 days later, Largo escaped with the young girl, Risha. They rode a horse as he used magic to defend against the soldiers coming after them. However, their overwhelming numbers soon caught up with them and hit the horse with an arrow, causing them to get flung off and an arrow to hit Largo's arm. At this rate, he can't use magic. He looked around to check on Risha, only to see her hanging by a cliff. Even if he doesn't die from the fall, he won't be able to move. He reached his hand out towards her, however, she retracted her hand back, and with a smile, she mouthed thank you. After hearing his story, Ciel couldn't help but feel sad. Shivan, on the other hand, wondered how it relates to the current situation. He's only understood that there are two reasons the Empire is targeting him. However, he soon paused upon realizing something. Imperial blood with immense magical power, a girl who regenerates from any wound, the Empire's research facilities. Ciel asked him what was wrong, but Shivan did not answer. Instead, he asked for her forgiveness before ripping the back of her clothes to check on the seal, only to find not a single scar. At that time, all he used was a knife he had on hand. After all, it was just a student stationery. Cutting with something like that should always leave a mark. Come to think of it, that duel too. Even though he avoided a direct hit, taking that massive fireball at such a close range, how could there be not even a single burn scar? The truth is, when investigating the incantation, Largo also had Audrey confirm it. Ciel is a replication of Risha, created as a hideous lump of flesh, and then regenerated into human form. However, Shivan believed this is purely conjecture based on the circumstances. There's no proof. That's right, there's no definitive evidence. What Largo can tell him is this. Given Risha's specifications, it is technically possible. If something is possible, the Empire will always attempt it. If he falls into their hands, his true nature will eventually be revealed, and he'll be forced to take part in their research to improve those living weapons. A girl identical to Risha, and a wielder of replication. Seeing the two of them standing side by side, he realized all they ever wanted to know was how that weapon could be created. Audrey admits it was wrong to keep it from Shivan, but still, he should try to understand Largo's feelings. Largo was the one who discovered the magic who made immortality possible. And because of that, Risha's fate became cursed, something he can never atone for. Then Shivan analyzed replication, and as a result, Ciel now stands before them. Audrey noticed Ciel's expression, and asked if she was okay. No, that was a dumb question. Of course, she's not. But contrary to her expectations, Ciel was actually fine. She was shocked, but Shivan told her she was a weapon. If that's true, then maybe there are others like her. He said it might be some kind of terrible creation method. Audrey raged after hearing that. What the hell does he think a girl's delicate heart is made of? However, that's why Ciel can face it. She's okay. Besides, if what the headmaster said is true, then she has the blood of the captured people too. It makes her kind of happy that in a way, she's the same as Shivan and AZ. Audrey can't even blame them, after all that. She was about to say more, when Shivan suddenly started laughing like a lunatic. What the hell? That's so creepy. What's wrong with him? It's nothing. He just remembered, Gouch once said he'd paid a fortune to acquire Ciel. But then, unbelievably, he killed him, the very one he needed for the research. That's why, they must have altered his memories and kept him in the dark. What a fool Gouch is. Audrey watched him with concern. He's quite twisted, isn't he? But well, one couldn't endure it without a little madness. A researcher is one who sows seeds. Watching that kind of flower bloom is both the greatest joy and the greatest torment. Shivan doesn't share the same sentiment though, and he doubts Largo has time to indulge in it either. He had made a grave miscalculation. Something possessing power of this magnitude couldn't possibly be mass-produced. But if what Largo's saying is true, then Ciel, no, the Risha-type weapon, it wouldn't be strange if there were even thousands of them. If anyone holds information about them, it would be that man. The Marquis of the Frontier, Nijay Aka. The one who last took custody of Ciel. Fortunately, the Aka family isn't as influential as it used to be, so they should be a relatively manageable opponent. Even tracing back through Shivan's past life, his past life's memories, Nijay didn't leave much of an impression. He turned to Ciel and asked what kind of person Nijay Aka is from her perspective. She apologized as she doesn't remember very well, but the first time they met, he asked if she was hungry and gave her warm soup. She thinks she remembers that part. At the Demiel estate, Nijay Aka's corpse lay on the ground, beheaded from its body, while Helman Demiel sat on a chair reading some documents regarding Shivan and Ciel. He suspected there was something being hidden, but this power, he'd very much like to have it for both the Night Order and his Demiel family. Shivan seems like a man with no bottom to his depths, but well, even the most formidable of rogues has a weakness. He slid the first page, the second showing information about the maid, AZ. Chapters end at 10. Thank you for watching guys. I hope you loved this manga. Have a good day.